Hello and welcome to another episode of Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. How we take care of our own environment is something that's slowly becoming pivotal for a lot of us in how we live, how we pick up products, and how we generally do or go about our daily lives. And in technology, this is certainly becoming an aspect that a lot of companies are really putting up there when it comes to deciding the future course of action. Today, we have with us Oliver Campbell, who is Director and Distinguished Engineer at Dell Technologies, and Nick Abbatiello, who is Senior Distinguished Engineer, Experience Design Group at Dell Technologies, to talk about how they're looking at a sustainable future for Dell. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So how do we start this? How important is all of this for Dell?
Well, I'll kick it off if you don't mind, Nick.
Sure.
I'd say sustainability is extremely important for Dell. We think about sustainability in every product we make, every packaging we make. We think about its impact on the environment. We think about how it makes it easier for our customers to be sustainable. So it is deeply embedded in what we do.
So is this something that starts from, let's say, the moment you think about a new product, or an entire SKU? So how does it fit into the entire design process?
Yeah, I'll take that one.
Yeah, process?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we do think about it from the very beginning of the product design, right? But actually, we start working way before even a product is conceived, right? So, we're out developing technologies and solutions years before we actually end up applying them into products to make sure that they're ready, that they're mature enough, that when we implement them, there's not a supply chain issue or some other manufacturing issue. So we spend a lot of time assessing what opportunities there are in our products. But for example, we basically look at all the materials that make up our product, and we look for opportunities to either increase recycled content, add recycled content if there isn't any there, and then also look for possibility of using a bio-based solution to replace fossil fuel, because all plastics are coming from carbon, right? So can we replace a fossil-based plastic with a renewable-based plastic as an option? So we really holistically look at the entire product and try to figure out where can we target, and then what technologies, and then how do we partner with our suppliers to do that. And I mean, we're going way back in the supply chain, way back to the raw material supplier, or even before some of the raw material suppliers like plastics. We're back at some of the primary chemical suppliers to understand what chemistry options we have to adjust some of the materials that we use.
So I guess if I can ask Oliver, this also means that you have to work with the entire supply chain, your ecosystem, and also nudge them to be where you want them to be, right? And even that's maybe a process that takes years, right? And you nudge them today and they get there maybe 5 years down the line. How does that work? And is it really tough to do it?
It is tough to do. And I'll give you a great example of what we've done with our ocean-bound plastic. We shipped our first products with ocean-bound plastic in 2017. And as Nick said, work on that starts years earlier. We actually started in 2015, where we conceived the idea. Then we actually spent 2 years looking at how to develop the supply chain, where to find it, what were the challenges with it, of which there are many. And we ended up, for ocean-bound plastic, starting our own, it's an NGO called Next Wave. It's a consortium of like-minded companies that are driving to keep plastic out of the ocean. And so now we're basically 8 years into this effort. And this year, I'm proud to say Dell's diverted 500,000 pounds of ocean-bound plastic. And so, it truly has phenomenal impact. We use it not only in our packaging, but our products, our soft goods as well. And many of the companies who are members of Next Wave are using it in their products and packaging as well. So it does take a while to develop these supply chains. They have to be global in nature. They're oftentimes, and ocean-bound plastic is a great example, they're located in marginalized communities. And so there are challenges there around labor, human rights, and we work very hard to lift those standards up to meet what our standards are. It's very much a journey, but this is how you integrate people and materials into the wider circular economy. It's one of the reasons I'm very proud of working for Dell.
Yeah, and if I could add to that too, is like, if I can add to that, just, we go way back, like I mentioned, in the supply chain, right? So we have to, innovation occurs not with our next supplier, not with the next supplier. It occurs maybe 4 or 5 layers back in the supply chain from where we are. So, we have to have those close partnerships with those companies because there's so much distance between us and them that they don't really directly hear what we want, right? Unless we're engaging directly with them. So we've had many examples where we work with these suppliers for like 4 years, laying out like how do we develop our strategy and our roadmap, and then we kind of work with them. How do I get their roadmap and their technology roadmap to kind of align with our technology roadmap, right? And when we talk about like using bio-based plastics that we use in our Latitude products, 5000 products, that discussion really took 4 years. And it wasn't, I kept asking and talking about it. And eventually one supplier came to me and said, well, you're the 4th company who's asked us about this. So now we're going to take our technology resources and we're going to invest our R&D energy into developing this solution, because obviously you're the only IT company, but there's definitely an industry push. So even though Dell is big by itself, we're often not big enough to do this, right? And that's kind of Oliver, hence the need for the Next Wave consortium, right? Dell is big, but we're not big enough on our own to drive some of these initiatives.
Which is quite interesting, which in a way means that if more and more companies start thinking like this, then you have something going here, something that's big. Absolutely. And it means that the entire ecosystem changes, right? Like,
absolutely. And somebody has to be that thought leader, right? So there's like materials that we use in some of our keyboards that's made with captured waste methane, right? To make this type of plastic. We don't use very much of that material in our products overall, maybe 500 metric tons a year. But we kind of see it as an investment in the industry. And then if we start to use it, do other people start to use it, and then other industries start to use it, and then you kind of have a trickle down effect, right? But somebody usually has to be first. And you can't be afraid to be first.
That sounds very familiar, Nick. When we introduced our bamboo packaging, I think that was around 2010 or so. And that was the big shift, Nando, out of single-use plastic packaging, particularly in the protective cushioning. And we moved out of styrofoam into bamboo. Many people thought we couldn't do it. But we had a very solid understanding, what I would say the engineering structures of bamboo, and treated it as a composite material. And so that really allowed us to come in and protect high value products with basically a fiber-based cushion. And, since then we understand much more. The research doesn't stop. It just keeps going, advancing, not only in the materials, but also the analytical tools, how we simulate the protective characters of our packaging. How do we make our boxes smaller? So it's not just materials, right? But how do we make that smaller so we use less energy in the supply chain and transportation? So these are all advances that we've had, and it's really been a phenomenal ride for us. And as Nick pointed out, I'm not sure we could have made say something like bamboo packaging or its successor, molded pulp packaging, really economically successful if others had not adopted it. And others have not only in our industry, but many others. And it's become a fantastic material.
How do you go about mainstreaming it within Dell itself, right? You have, multiple SKUs, multiple products catering to different markets, different users, so do you have internal goals which say maybe 10% of all our products have sustainable parts in it? Or do you say that all our products have 10%? So how do you go about it? I'm sure that calculation itself, it has huge business implications too, right?
Yeah, it does. We have a goal, one of our 2030 goals. It's to use 50% recycled, renewable, and we're going to update that to include low emission materials in our products by 2030. So that's the goal. I mean, we're definitely a goal-oriented company, and when we're definitely driven by our goals. So, now what we usually do is we have what I would call an early involvement program, or EIV program, that we pick, and then we use that program to initiate the material or technology that we're doing, and then we kind of monitor it, make sure it goes kind of smoothly. And then we kind of fan it out across the other products that we produce.
Yeah.
Like we look for if we're going to do aluminum, we look for every product that contains, aluminum in its chassis or, things like that. And then, we pick the first one and then we translate it over and over and over to all the different products that you may use aluminum as a chassis material, for example.
Yeah. And is this something that you guys drive as a team, or is it something that's sort of percolated, across the company, that everybody knows that whenever they think of something, whenever they visualize a new concept or a product, they need to have this in back of their mind?
Yeah, we have a team. We have an internal team that drives that. So I work on the technology side. So my team incubates the technology. We drive it through an technology incubation process. And then once we reach a certain milestone in that technology incubation process, we start mapping it into products. And then there's a team that manages that behind the scenes, a product management team that kind of then maps all those different materials and technologies into the different products and takes it from there. It's a lot of effort because like you said, all the different SKUs and all the different products. So not only do I support like notebooks and desktops, but my team also supports servers and infrastructure, and so does Oliver's team, right? Mm-hmm. So we cover the whole breadth of Dell Technologies products, and so it'd be quite cumbersome for if Oliver and I were kind of trying to figure out where all those things end up getting mapped into.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're that smart. I would like to add, on top of what Nick described, we also do utilize open innovation sessions where we bring in others. And give them a problem. Hey, here's what we're thinking about working on. Not only our current supply base, but companies who might like to be Dell suppliers or really somebody we've read about, and we see where that goes. And that's actually had some interesting outcomes for us. So to Nick's point, we really try to cover all bases and really take some, non-traditional approaches as well, because you can typically find nuggets there. And I also would say, certainly in packaging, we are aware of the cool factor. So if we see something pretty cool, that might bubble up to the top as well. So
in this case, do you also, go scouting for new technologies? Like, you've heard maybe, somebody has a new material which you are sort of figuring out how to use in your products. Do you do that too?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, from our side on the product, our number one goal, though, is to not create a new material. Why do I say that? Because you create a problem at the end of life. So how do you separate another material in end of life in the recycling process? So what we really want to focus on first is how do we improve the sustainability or the reduce carbon emissions or whatever of the materials that we're using today. That's our number one thing. Because again, if we invent a new plastic, let's say we invent a new plastic, at the end of life, plastics are already very, very difficult to separate from each other. So now I have another one that I got to worry about And recycling is a scale business, right? And so if you add another material that has to be separated, you're slowing things down, making the recycling process kind of uneconomical at that point, right? So we're trying, at least on the product side, I'm not really trying to invent something new at the beginning. I'm trying to take what we have and initially make that as good as I can possibly make it from an environmental. How do I lower the carbon footprint or lower the environmental impact of that material to the fullest degree that we possibly can before we start to think about, do we go and invent something new?
Yeah, and inventing something new takes a lot of effort, and it goes back, Nando, to what you're talking about. Typically, then you have to recreate an entire supply chain.
So, if you're looking at the future, what are the technologies or what are the interventions that you are most excited about?
What are the interventions I'm most excited about? Well, I'm most excited about all the different technologies that are coming. Like, how do we? Okay, if you think about materials right now, we're a lot of focus on materials, right? And how do we do some materials more sustainable? I'm really excited how, Dell's got another goal about collecting back basically a product for every product that we produce. I'm kind of excited about that because I'm looking for material to harvest, right? In some cases, when you talk about recycled materials, there's not enough, right? And being able to collect more products actually helps you enable that. I'm also excited about like new technologies and the cloud and how infrastructure and changes in that work, and then how does that let us rethink our product design, right? I mean, we always got to be rethinking how we design products because at some point you're not going to be able to squeeze out any more carbon emissions. Ultimately, the goal is to reduce carbon emissions of the product that you produce, right? By either extending its life or reducing, changing the materials. Ultimately, that's the goal. At some point, you won't be able to reduce it anymore because you'll push your suppliers and you'll push things to the point and you'll hit an asymptote, right? And so kind of what I'm really excited about is how does technology allow us to change that relationship? And how can we leverage different things to change the game? Because I think there's some things coming that would allow us to do that.
Yeah. I think what makes me excited, Nando, is within packaging at Dell, we have a goal for 2030. 100% of our packaging will be sourced from renewable or recyclable sources. And at this point, we're about 91% of our packaging is fiber-based, and we're just under 95% of our way to that goal. So we're getting very close.
Yeah.
And we're really starting to focus at this point on plastic bags. And I would love to see 10, 15 years in the future, if you want to see a plastic bag, go look in a museum. How can we eliminate plastic bags? I know in India, they're a huge problem. They're a huge problem in many other countries around the world. This is one of the reasons why we got involved in ocean-bound plastics. Just the impact of aquatic life as well. And so we're working very hard with numerous suppliers on technologies to continue to displace plastic bags. Our viewpoint is the best plastic bag is no plastic bag. I think it will take time for us, given why plastic bags exist, certainly within our packaging structures, and there's a host of reasons. So it's not quite as easy as saying, hey, just get rid of the plastic bag. There's a bit more to it. But we're working on those issues. We have eliminated plastic bags from a number of our products, and we have more work to do there. So I'd advise your listeners to stay tuned to what Dell's doing.
I'm sure this is a lot of insight into what's going to happen. But if I can sort of flip the question to sort of wind up the podcast, and what is it that keeps you up at night, both of you?
Oh, what is it keeping up at night?
Up at night?
Uh,
Is there things that you want to do, but the technology is not there yet?
Well, I think one of the things is, can we actually go fast enough? Right.
Mhm.
And the rate at which climate change is happening, can we go fast enough? And that's kind of what would keep me up at night. And then I'd say the second thing is, as we have these lofty goals for adding content, and taking back products, I think, how do we get enough material? Because ultimately, we're gonna run out of recycled material at some point, right? Unless we start collecting more stuff as a society, right? And I think it's yes, we can design our products to make them easier to take apart at the end of life, and we can facilitate that, and we can work on, again, collecting stuff. But I think as a society, we have an obligation to start returning things, right? And think, instead of taking your old phone and dumping it in the trash, right? Take it somewhere. Find a way to recycle that phone. Find a way to recycle your computer. Don't just discard things that may have some intrinsic value still, right? Because there are things we can extract from those products. There are things that we can reuse for those products. And the more we get back, the more we can make it economically viable, to do recycling.
Yeah, I think I'd add, just add to that, I share Nick's concern. Are we going fast enough? Certainly from a climate change, but when you look at the health of rivers, oceans, landfills, forests, many of those environments are in crisis as well too. And as we work on these, I think one of the big hopes is that we continue to have young people who are in high school or university, start to select the engineering, the sciences that will be developing the technologies of the future that address these problems. So we are seeing that certainly with the interns that we have here at Dell. And I hope that's something that really continues around the world, because we need everybody contributing to tackle this problem.
At least we are looking at a generation or generations coming, which will be a little bit more, aware and caring about, how they leave the world that they inherited from us, better than us for sure. On that note, Nick and Oliver, thanks for being on the show. And I'm sure, this will make, our listeners and people who are looking to buy a new product think twice before they pick up the product. See the packaging, see what's gone inside the product, to ensure that they are doing the little bit towards ensuring that we have a better world. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So you were listening to Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. I'm sure you learned something new today. We'll be back again next week with more guests and a lot more insight.